with this Enduro format. This is his favourite. And Spencer Smith is in great form. Miles Stewart, Chris Hill. I mean, a win could come from absolutely anywhere.
The scene is set for a great race. Let's go down to transition now with Heidi Ahrens.
Greg Welch hasn't just won the Hawaiian Ironman, he's also the only one to win a round over Brad Bevan in the GP. Greg, you won here last year in Kilda. Are you feeling as confident today?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. You know, it's the same sort of weather as last year. Same sort of course, a little bit longer on the bike loops, and the run course is a little bit tighter, but I feel pretty good about it.
All right, and what tactics do you think you'll be employing?
I think that the best thing for me to do would be to just watch out on what everyone else is doing at the time, because it is an enduro, so it goes for quite a while, but watch out for the last couple of run legs.
Okay, does this format suit you more?
Yeah, I think the enduro suits me more because I'm a long distance person really, so the longer it goes... Well, actually, I hope it goes all day. Have you guys got 8 hours to spend on this telecast?
I wish we did.
Yeah, so I think the longer it goes, the better it is for me.
All right, well, let's take a look at round 1 at Manly in the Reebok review.
And there is a good shot of that massive start line. This Welchie flying out of the blocks. We've had a fall. Chris McCormack in a lot of pain. She is commanding this race. Oh, Brad Bevan.
Oh, and a flush with the bike.
Performance, Nicky Hackett. Miles Stewart, the croc, has taken out the second of this triple super sprint. Right now she's done it. Spencer Smith from England has won the third race. Well, that was the Reebok review. Today's race is the Enduro format, a continuous race with 2 swims, 2 bikes and 2 runs. The water conditions, as you can see over my shoulder, there's no swell whatsoever here in the bay. The wind is down. It's going to continue to get a bit stronger during the day. Water temperature, I've been in the water today, 18 to 19 degrees, nice and warm for the guys. There is a bank just out the back, which will bring wading into play today. All in all, a fantastic race. I'm picking Greg Welch to win today. Let's now go to the series points. And here's how it stands after the first event. 3 different winners in the triple super sprint, and Bevan, Stewart and Welch were the 3. But that's how they finished up. Bevan, Stewart and Smith, I should say, were the 3. That's how they finished up after the day's events. There's Welch in 6th place. Will come into play today, of course, being a lot longer. And down to Greg Bennett in 11th place. Good solid performance from him. Chippy Slater going very well. Noble, Nunn and Lees. Now into the rest of the 20. Timmy Bentley, who's a local here, should come to the 4. Troy Fiddler, look for an improved performance from him as well. Richard Allen and Ben Sanson, overseas performers, and they'll be looking to improve because the first race in the Grand Prix is always your hardest. And Chris Lee, young Australian with a lot of talent, speaking of which, Craig Walton, Chris Hill, 2 junior talents, Ben Bryant, who was the 1994 junior world champion. There's a lot around, Mark Field.
There certainly is a lot of talent. I think Ben Bryant should do well in this format. There's a run and a swim in the middle, which is critical to the success of whoever goes on to win this race. I also think someone like Simon Knowles could come back. Locke Bolmerhouse is in good form. But I think Greg Welch, this is going to be his favourite event.
You can't tip them all though, can you? But I'll tell you what, it's going to be very close. That's how good it is. Let's have a look at the start list. And here's your opportunity to tip them all. Bevan, Welch, Knowles, who, again, we can't leave out of this race, Simon Knowles. He'll be a lot fresher after Manly. Bennett, Fiddler, Johns and Noble. Miles Stewart, one who's going to be very hard to beat. Tim Bentley, if he can stay close, will go well on the run. He's performed very well in the Triathlon Australia Series, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Spencer Smith, number 14, and Ben Sanson, the Frenchman. Cameron Brown from New Zealand. Richard Allen from Great Britain, who came over here with Spencer. Chris Hill, the youngster we've talked about, along with Craig Walton, and those two were dicing in the recent World Junior Championships, which Hill won. Meadows and Harper, the 2 Jasons. Chris Lee, another Australian talent, as is George Atkinson, and Chris McCormack, also a very good runner. So it comes down to tours. What do you think will happen in this race, Mark Field?
I'm going to go out on a limb and tip Welchie and Spencer Smith 50-50, I think, for this particular race.
Okay, it's a big call because, as we said, there are so many chances. And the growth of all this junior talent that we're talking about is much attributed to Triathlon Australia's structure. They run a series in conjunction with the St George Bank Triathlon GP. It's also sponsored by St George. Let's have a look at the latest round, which was the Australian Sprint Championships. Perfect conditions, and you need that when 1,000 competitors plough through Port Phillip Bay to St Kilda Pier.
Yeah, I've had a good 2 weeks training since Devonport. I'm pretty confident with the way that's been going. I haven't had much of a rest for this race, but hopefully I've pulled up fresh enough to have a good race today.
Well, this is just a test race for me to iron out any problems. The Grand Prix St George starts next week, and that's where I'm hoping to do my best result.
Emma Carney used this as her staging race for the Grand Prix and proved a few weeks of light training had not lessened her ability to compete. She led Alison Hayward by 4 seconds out of the water and extended that lead on the bike. Carney hadn't raced in 3 months, but she was on her way to the fastest bike split. Her run was also the fastest, setting up a record time of 1 hour, 1 minute and 20 seconds, her 3rd national sprint title in succession.
It was the first race since Mexico, so I was a bit unsure of how I was going to go, but it came together well. There was a few girls missing, so I don't think it was that great a race.
Hayward was 2nd, Carolyn Hubbard 3rd.
I was rapt to be able to keep up with her in the swim. I jumped on her feet at the start and kept up because the swim's been my weakest leg. So when I came out in 2nd place, I knew it was going to be a great race. Well, I got her to swim on their feet, which is, I'm really happy about that. The rest of the race felt like I was in slow motion. So the Grand Prix is a lot shorter than this, so I think it's going to be really close contact racing.
In the men's event, a raging naval battle for the lead into transition, Simon Knowles beating Craig Walton, Jason Harper and Brett Ricchini. They weren't long on the bikes before Locke Volmerhouse and Craig Alexander joined the pack. The bike-to-run transition involved a little jaunt of its own. Volmerhouse complained about the 300-metre run with bike to get back to the racks. There, Knowles and Walton somehow pinched a lead. But Volmerhouse caught them again 1 kilometre into the run, and he held a 9-second lead over Walton all the way to the line. Tim Bentley surged for 3rd, passing Knowles. Jason Harper was 5th, but less than 1 minute separated the top 7 men.
Yeah, it's good to come back after having such a poor year last year and come back and win an Australian Championship. It's really a great feeling.
Yeah, I'm only 20, so, I've got a bit ahead of me, I think, and I've been really concentrating on my running and really working hard on it, and I'm really happy, that I'm actually running with people like Locke and the rest of the pros,
And of course, you can see that the leading place getters in that particular race are also competing in the elite professional series, the St George Bank Triathlon GP. The definitive guide to which is, of course, as usual, the brilliantly produced Australian Triathlete magazine. Our leading multi-sport magazine, Australian Triathlete, has produced a bumper special edition for the St George Bank Triathlon GP. And with it, the chance to win an amazing prize pack. There'll be great columns from experts like Rob Di Castella, Kathy Watt and Guy Leach. Plus, a comprehensive preview of the Battle of the Year, Jones versus Carney. An interview with dual world champion Spencer Smith. Is he ready to crush the croc? Profiles on all the leading athletes in the Grand Prix, one of the strongest fields in history. A detailed look at the life of a professional triathlete told by the legend Scott Molina. And the man who's dominated the Grand Prix since it began, Brad Bevan, will tell us his feelings about the 96 series and his toughest competition ever. But don't forget this competition. There are 5 complete triathlon kits to give away, including bike, clothing, shoes, heart rate monitor, computer program, the lot. An incredible package, and you could win it. Essential reading for a sizzling season. Just $6.50 at newsstands and bike stores everywhere. Getting ready for the start now. If they're running a book on this race, you'd have to say it was 5-1 the field. It's wide open. We'll be back after this break to get them underway.
So Australia beats England, Zimbabwe, Sri Lanka.
Bay looking magnificent as usual. Wonderful day here. Good crowd built up. Melbourne loves its triathlon, and a big reception for Greg Welch when he was introduced here. Obviously, they've taken him on as their own, even though he comes from Sydney, of course, and based for most of the year anyway in San Diego. But he has won 2 events here, and there he is just behind the yellow jersey holder, Brad Bevan. And the focus is immense. They're off into the water now on the St George Bank Triathlon Grand Prix, round 2, and Guy Leach tactics here, very important.
Yeah, well, there's a bank over to the right-hand side. We can see right now one of the competitors has run right out to the right-hand side as we're going out, and he has hit the lead. Simon Knowles in the middle is the next best, and Brad Bevan, well, he's always up there. He's next best after that, but there was a little gully on the inside. A few of the boys fell over, and then there's a good bank, and it's becoming lower tide as the race goes on. So the second swim is going to be vital. As I look out now, I can see Simon Knowles swimming, Brad Bevan. I'm looking for Spencer Smith back here in the field somewhere. It's very, very hard to pick these guys because they're all just thrashing along. Spencer's back in about 10th position with the blue cap on. I see Miles Stewart, and I'm going to look for Benjamin Sands on this race. I'm really looking to see him come to the fore because he's...
Now let's have a look at the course map, and we'll see how the swim leg will unfold. There it is, straight out from the beach, but then they go across and cut back in a triangular shape, and there's a slight run between the 2 laps on this swim leg.
Yeah, it's a 250-metre lap on the swim. They do that twice. They then come in for a 14-kilometre cycle, followed by a 3-kilometre run, and then they have to do the whole thing again. That's why it's called the Enduro, and in the past there have been 3 Enduro races in the GP in the last 2 years. Greg Welch has won 2 of them, and each time down here in Victoria, Greg Welch has stolen a win from Brad Bevan.
Tactically, Mark, a lot more complicated to work out just where to surge and what to do when you divide the race into 6 legs.
Well, that's right. This first swim is very important. You will have noticed that Simon Knowles is a very good wader. He got out in front. He's looking for a better performance on this race. But as you mentioned before, tactically, probably the main race is not going to start until the first run and the second swim. That is where the break will occur.
Do you think the swimmers like Sanson, Knowles, can get any advantage at all out of this particular format?
Well, you can see Simon Knowles out in front. He's our number 4. It does suit him because there are 2 swims. He's also a very good runner, so if he can hang in on that first run and go into the water well placed, he'll be in good shape. You'll notice there, Brad Bevan, the yellow leader's jersey, he's looking very comfortable in second place. He is hampered at the moment by a little bit of an Achilles injury, which probably won't affect him racing, but it has, as we mentioned earlier, affected his preparation.
And Benjamin Sanson, I'm pretty sure I saw the number 16 on his arm, is right up there in 3rd position now. And Ben will be much happy that, of course, he would have been blown away by the experience of Manly with the triple super sprint. He would not have been familiar with the format. It's not easy at all for any of these overseas athletes trying this series for the first time. And Ben, in fact, is second out of the water alongside Brad Bevan, and that's good to see him. He's also had a big haircut during the week, which is quite unusual for the Frenchman.
Well, he's had the ponytail for quite some time, and he's cut it off, which maybe he thinks a little bit of extra weight to shed, and he'll swim a bit faster in the water. You can see as they go back into the water, those that have the long legs are able to lift their legs out of the water, and then they will start to wade as they head back out for the second lap. But interestingly, I saw number 8, Andrew Noble, very well placed, and he's not known as a swimmer.
Andrew Noble, of course, a very strong runner and performed well in round 1. Knowlesy still out there in front, the Victorian, and that'll be very pleasing for the locals. But you can see that it's quite a big pack there. Now, Miles Stewart is in the red singlet. We've got Brad Bevan in the yellow leader's jersey, Miles Stewart in the red. He's coming second so far in the series, and Spencer Smith is running 3rd. But apart from Simon Knowles, there's not a lot between the rest. Benjamin Sanson, as I mentioned, a very, very strong swimmer, has got to be up there, really, because he, in a recent ITU World Cup race in Sydney, was well clear out of the water, held on very strongly on the bike, but was overwhelmed in the run, Mark, so he's got to be up there.
Well, that has been Ben's problem in the past. He's a very, very good swimmer. In fact, he holds the French national swim course record, 1,500 metres, 15 minutes and 3 seconds. Now, nobody in Australia, including Kieran Perkins, has swum that fast this year.
Ben's looking to try and do a sub-32 minutes for 10K. That's his target for 1996. And he's also set himself for big performances on the ITU circuit again, where he finished top 10 in 1995. And he's also looking to have a crack at Hawaii, which is an interesting ambition for one who's more noted over the middle distances.
Well, Hawaii, of course, the ultra-distance race, which is... generally, they're out there in between 8 and 17 hours. It's a big effort. But here, this is a different sort of race. We've got high-intensity racing. And I just noticed number 6, Troy Fiddler, appears to be taking the lead at the front along with Simon Knowles. So Troy Fiddler also looking to increase his performance at the moment.
Troy, in fact, is up there, but I think you'll find it's Ben Sanson who's actually in the lead ahead of Knowlesy. Guy Lynch can clear that up now. It's very hard to make out numbers in the water. But Guy, it is Ben in front.
Yeah, we've got Sandstone's moved to the front with Craig Walton. They've come through in that second part of the swim. Then we've gone back to, we've got Brad Bevan back in the group there. We've got Simon Knowles, who's in 3rd place. I see Welch is back in about 10th. We've got Chippy Slater, Greg Bennett's up there as well. And Spencer Smith, well, he's back there in about 15th position at the moment. But the boys out in front, the 2 best swimmers, I feel, in the field with the best technique by far, is Craig Walton and Benjamin Sandstone. Benjamin Sandstone is a beautiful swimmer. He's someone that could do pool swimming. He could represent his country at the Olympic Games, there's no doubt.
Craig Walton performed so well at Manly, perhaps because his weakest leg, the run, was in fact very short there. It's going to be a lot harder for him today to sustain whatever platform he builds in the swim and the bike.
He's a big boy. The second swim's going to be very important for him. As we're talking now, though, the bank's very, very shallow here. It's about 1 foot. The boys are running out of the water, and as you watch, they lift their legs out to the side. Just not like running on the road. They've got to lift their legs out to the side and lift their knees right up. It's a completely different technique. Welch has come out in a great position, about 8th position. Spencer Smith is just behind him. Fiddler, Meadows, Bright, Bennett, Stewart, Miles Stewart's back there as well. Andrew Noble, who led the field off the first run leg, Lees, and the rest of the field's coming in behind them.
You would have noticed, as I mentioned, Stewart in the red singlet, Spencer Smith's in the green singlet. That's the official singlet for 3rd place. But it's Craig Walton leading them into transition with Ben Sanson. They were the 2 best swimmers. Let's go down to Heidi Ahrens. There's quite a gap there between those place getters.
Craig Walton's just coming into transition now. He's so vital here to make a break, especially Ben Sanson, who's not noted on the bike or the run. They actually can't afford to make any mistakes here at all. They're putting on their helmets now. It's Craig, Richard Allen. It's Craig Walton going first out of the transition. It's a very good transition from Craig Walton.
He was behind Ben Sanson by about 5 metres, really nothing in it. Notice Greg Welch came in very quickly too and had quite a good change. He was right next to Brad Bevan, who was right on the tail of those 2 leaders. So Mark Fuel, it looks like they'll set up a fairly large pack. There's no one really getting any distance away as we see them now out on the bike course.
I doubt very much that anybody will break away on this bike course because they have to do the whole course twice through. To go out on your own at this stage, tactically, probably wouldn't be very sensible because you're going to be working so much harder by yourself. And I think what will happen on leg is that the pack will form and then the break will come in that first 3-kilometre run.
Well, it looks to me on the Hungry Jack's bike leg that they were dawdling, just waiting for that pack to form. No use chewing up any juice. Here's the map of this course, and it's quite straightforward. Out of transition, you have to run your bike, then you can jump on, and it's a 2K looped course down to the end where there's a couple of kinks, but there's plenty of pace, and someone has come down. That's the number 28, Chris McCormack, who had some trouble in Manly with cramp coming out of the water on that occasion, so I'm not sure what the problem is here today. It looks like it may be cramp again because he still has his swim cap on. It looks like he never even made it into transition. We see Dr. Di Robinson there, the team doctor, working on Craig to try and find out what's wrong with him. He seemed to be in a lot of pain when he went down in Manly. I wonder if it's the same situation here today, but right now we're going back to our leaders, and that is in fact Ben Sanson, the number 16, who's taking charge. But of course right behind him is Craig Walton, the young man from Ulverston in Tasmania, and there's a very, very big pack forming up behind them, including of course ominously that man Bevan.
Well, that's right. Bevan is very well placed. He had a good transition. He was quick in and out. And if you look carefully at the back of the screen, this front group has actually got away. I don't think they'll be able to hold off the rest of the field. But at the moment, and you can see the size of the pack there, I mean, that is just huge. And at the moment, Ben Sanson out in front, He's looking for somebody else to take a turn. He wants to have a rest, to slip back on somebody else's wheel. That's Craig Walton surging to the front, and look at the power in his bike.
Welch is in that pack as well, so he's nicely positioned, and Greg Welch, of course, in the middle stages of the race last year, an identical format. There's another fall. There's another fall. We're just trying to get a handle on it. It's Walton. It's number 20, and that's Craig Walton. And that is just a disaster for the young man. He raced brilliantly in Manly, and that is very disappointing. He'll need to get a wriggle on now and join a pack if he can, and try and catch up with the rest of them. The worst thing you can have happen is to be caught out on your own after a fall, Mark.
Well, that's going to be very hard for Craig to come down hard. You can see he lost a bit of skin, but you may have noticed tactically, as soon as he came down, Chippy Slater just surged off the front. He saw that there was an opportunity to jump. There's the shot from our Hungry Jack's bike cam. I think that's Craig Walton sitting right in front of our bike cam there, and he's going to have to chase hard.
Let's hear from Australian duathlon champion Jonathan Hall, who's on our bike.
Yeah, I'm sitting behind Craig Welch here. He came down very heavily. He's actually chipped teeth, and it's a very courageous move to get back on his bike. Hopefully he can get in this group and possibly get up back to the front, but he's going to have to relax, let the adrenaline settle down, and settle down into a rhythm.
Yes, he did look to be in a lot of pain, Jonathan, as you were talking there. He just grabbed the lower back, so I reckon he's hurting in a few places. And as we speak, we've just gone to shots of Chris McCormack, who's had to be carried back to the transition area with Di Robinson in attendance. So I hope everything's okay with Chris McCormack. I'm not sure yet what has happened to him. We'll try and find out. We might have a chat with Heidi Ahrens in a moment if she can find out. But right now we're back with our leaders, and that's number 11 catching up with them, Eamon Nunn, who's taking a turn in front of this very large pack.
Well, Eamon Nunn from Queensland, he's a very strong performer. He tends to peak for one race a season in previous seasons, but this year he seems to be maintaining his consistency. And there he is out in front. You can see very smooth pedaling technique, not pushing too big a gear and conserving his energy. And coming up on the side at the moment, number 12, that's Darren Carnell from New South Wales.
Also a strong swimmer. He would have been well positioned after that first leg. Now let's go to Heidi Ahrens for a report on Chris McCormack.
Word with the doctor. She's not quite sure what's wrong with him. He has been sick all week. She thinks it may be a virus, and he's just suffered from exhaustion more than anything, but he doesn't need an ambulance, so hopefully he will be okay.
Thanks, Heidi. Chris McCormack there just being loaded onto the table where Di Robinson could take a closer look. But we're back with our leaders now. That is the pack, and taking a turn in the lead, Darren Carnell. A moment ago we saw Eamon Nunn up there, and typically Brad Bevan tucked away right behind them. Richard Allen, I see. I'm pretty sure it was number 18 up there as well. Ben Sanson. So the overseas performers, a better suited distance for them, Mark. So they should be prominent in this particular race.
That's right, and particularly for the swimmers, guys like Ben Sanson and Darren Carnell, this will suit them a little bit more than the first race at Manly, because there is that second swim. And that looks like Miles Stewart has come up into about 5th place. He didn't have a great swim, and you can see Spencer Smith looming towards the back of the pack there. So all the major players are together at the moment.
And look at that pack. It is massive. They'll all be able to take a rest. There's a nice shot.
That's Chippy Slater going again, surging off the front. Chippy Slater was very strong on the bike last year.
There he is, Chippy Slater, number 13. We're going to a break now as the tension mounts in the second leg of round 2 of the St George Bank Triathlon GP. At the moment, they're in top 5, but there's a big bunch in the lead. Triathlon GP from St Kilda, beautiful conditions, and look at that, an awesome sight. The pack has formed, and almost every competitor is in it. So no one's been able to get away. And right now, it's the blonde hair of Chipmunk Slater leading them, taking a turn in front, but we've had a few others do so. Darren Carnell, Eamon Nunn, Brad Bevan's just in there behind them, the series leader. That's his yellow jersey, with Miles Stewart and Spencer Smith right behind him. So the three big guns keeping an eye on each other. Before we go any further, we'll run through some other placings for those people at home looking for friends and relatives, of course. Ben Sanson is up there in 6th place. Troy Fiddler is in that pack. Loch Bulmer House, Jason Metters, Mark Lees, Andrew Noble, Eamon Nunn, as I mentioned, took a turn in front. Richard Allen from New Zealand. Then we've got from Great Britain, I should say. Then we've got Andrew Johns. Chris Hill is in there with Chris Lee, 2 young Australians. So is Chris Atkinson, Jason Harper, Brown, Bentley, Bright, Walton, they're all up there. Craig Walton, of course, came down. Let's have a quick look. Here it is. We'll see exactly what happened to him. Just completely lost it on the turn, Mark.
Oh, that is a nasty fall. Fell onto his shoulder, and you could see how fast he was going. The momentum actually carried him onto his face and a complete roll. That is got to hurt him for the rest of the race. That was just an awful fall.
Usually one wheel goes, on that occasion both.
Well, I think he did come into that corner a little bit too fast, and it just goes to show in this sort of racing absolutely anything can happen, and the technical skills are very, very important.
So there you have it, a very, very big bunch in front. Now you can see some gap has formed now between that bunch and the one behind, and that second bunch is where Craig Walton is parked right now. But in that front bunch there are a number of athletes. Now that's a shot of
Simon
the
Knowles.
pack. Simon Knowles is there. Chris Hill is somewhere in that pack. And let's hear from the young man right now who recently won the World Junior Championships in Mexico.
Race 1 down in Manly, it was really intense. I couldn't believe it. The guys just blew away in the first swim, and I got out of the water and I was so stuffed and went into the first corner and crashed. And after that, it was just after the first race, my legs were killing, and I couldn't believe we had 2 races to go. For 1996, I'd love to crack at top 8 finish. I think anything more than the top 5 would be a bonus, and I'd be thrilled with that. I definitely think Brad Bevan would be the hardest to beat. My greatest moment would have to be the 7th of November 1995 over in Mexico, where I won the World Junior Championship. It was just a dream come true for me. My long-term goal would probably be the Olympics in Sydney in the year 2000. I think that's every junior's dream today, and I'll be 25 then. I think if I can make it to there, it'd be just unbelievable.
Well, what a duel it's been between he and Craig Walton. We'll elaborate on their story in a moment, but right now let's hear from Jonathan Hall, who's tracking that pack.
I'm just sitting on the back of the front pack. Andrew Noble's just punched it, and he's going to have to change the rear wheel and chase. But the second group, I think it includes Greg Bennett and Craig Walton, are probably only 10 or 15 seconds behind right now, and look like they will get on.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting scenario, and what a comeback if Craig Walton can attach himself and continue this race, because as Jonathan did point out earlier, he was in pretty bad shape after that nasty fall. Now, Mark, it's been a marvellous situation between Chris Hill and Craig Walton. Craig's been the outstanding junior. He's 20 years old, but Chris Hill staged a magnificent performance to upset Craig in the recent World Championships. Craig then came out in Manly in the first round of the Grand Prix and finished amongst the top 4. He was exceptional there, and Chris probably, as he mentioned there, just a little bit unsettled by the format.
Well, these young guys are so talented. I think, as you say, Chris Hill in the first race, probably the format pinned by surprise. Craig Walton, very, very powerful. I think in this format, Chris would have the edge. Chris Hill did run better than Craig at the World Championships. In fact, that's where he won. He had a minute 30 down and actually caught Craig and won. And you've never seen a guy who's happier. In fact, whenever he places anywhere, Noosa last year, he came 3rd, and you'd swear that he'd won then. I mean, he's just the most excitable young guy, and he is very, very talented.
Right now, we'll have a quick check of the placings. Miles Stewart taking a turn in front of the pack. You can just see Brad Bevan tucking him behind, and right beside him on the right of your screen at the back corner, Spencer Smith, the big man from England. And it's pretty hard for Spencer to tuck behind anybody because he's so solid. It's pretty hard for him to get a draft, but plenty can get a draft from him. Let's go down to Heidi Ahrens. We might have an update on Chris McCormack.
All right, Chris McCormack has recovered slightly, which is great news. We still don't know quite what is wrong. We don't know how he got onto the other side of the fence out of the running area, but we do know that he is okay.
Okay, Chris McCormack, our thoughts are with him, and a very gutsy performer. Qualified for the Grand Prix last year by competing at Lake Krakenbach, and was a very courageous performer, very good runner, and has been working hard on his other legs, but as I mentioned, had trouble in Manly as well, so obviously things not quite right. And Mark Fuel, we had this happen. Loch Volmerhouse last year had a similar situation. They can be viral complaints. Sometimes the doctors find it very hard to put a finger on it, but these triathletes go into periods there sometimes where they just lose it.
That's right. Well, they do race at such an intense level. A small virus can really attack their system and it's hard to recover. But at the moment, out in front, that's Mark Lees, number 23. He's been third in the Australian Championships for the last 3 years, and he had a good season this year over in America.
So setting it up now, Mark Lees leading. We're going to go to a break in just a moment. The placing's not all that important at this stage, as you understand, because we have this massive pack in front. But Johns, Carnell, Munn, Bevan, Spencer Smith, they were the top 5 at the last checkpoint, with Welch, Stewart, Hill, Mark Lees, who has now just gone to the front or just taken a turn, and Wayne, Chippy Slater. They're all there, and we'll be back with more after this.
Ooh, I want a whopper. Ooh, I want a whopper. Gotta have that flame grilled beef.
On champion Brad Bevan and win $100,000. Brad the Crop Bevan has taken all before him and reigned supreme. So here's your chance to become an overnight sporting sensation by beating Brad in a special one-off triathlon challenge race and pocketing $100,000. Listen to Triple M radio stations in your city for full competition details and catch all the St. George Bank Triathlon Grand Prix action here on 10.
He's rich.
Show some data.
Welcome back, the Hungry Jack's bike leg. This is the St. George Bank Triathlon GP round 2. And what can come of this? A massive pack forming, and I think some not so weary legs as we go into the first run leg, Mark.
Well, the pack has formed. That is Craig Walton. He's come from a fall to leading the bunch. That is absolutely incredible.
Well, Jonathan Hall said that Craig would have to just take stock, get his form going, get the adrenaline pumping, and that is just a marvellous performance from Craig Walton. Well, at least we know he's there. There's no question about that. And how unselfish is it? Because after that fall, Craig could well have just sat in the middle of that pack, although perhaps he's trying to get away from trouble.
Well, that is a good point. If you are out in front, you can stay out of trouble. Although you can see he hit a corner too fast and came down, you can see that his favoured leg is the swim, but he's a very, very strong cyclist. He won the US Pro Championships in 1995 with a superb bike leg where he came off more than 3 minutes in front for the run. So he's very, very talented, and I have to say, extremely gutsy.
Well, he's from Tasmania, and they love him down there. He's going to be exceptional performance if he can do something with this race. It remains to be seen how much the fall's taken out of him. We've got Spencer Smith sitting up there having a constant look around there. He's on the right of your screen in the green singlet. Now, Brad Bevan, similar colours. It's yellow, of course, for the leader's jersey. He's on the left of your screen. You can see good crowd here at St Kilda building up for this race. A lot of tension about it. Miles Stewart on the far left of your screen just went out of shot there, but he's in the red singlet, and he just passed you then. He's holding, of course, that second place in the series, and they're all just jostling for position. There's not a lot anyone can do. Chippy Slater there, you can see coming to the fore. He's ready, it looks, to take a turn in front. I think I saw Greg Bennett up there as well. Just about everybody's in that group. It's not much point really in picking out placings for you at this stage, although in the second bunch, last checkpoint, looking at the computer readout, there doesn't seem to be a big gap between the two bunches. Jonathan Hall, can you sort that out for us?
Yeah, Craig Walton here he's gone back to the front. He had adrenaline pumping through him, which is probably actually the advantage at the moment. But we just had another close call on that corner. Tim Bentley had to pull his foot out to get through that corner. But pace isn't really on here. They know that they're all together, and they'll be looking for a solid run. But the run-swim combination is going to be important.
So, Jonathan, they have in fact formed one large pack now.
Yeah, it's one large pack, except for Andrew Noble, who punched, and still the guys here at the back are doing considerably more work than the guys at the front.
Okay, we see there Troy Fiddler, unmistakably, with the lettering on the back of his togs, and he's trailing that pack at the moment. As Jonathan pointed out, it's a lot harder for him because up the front they're bunched and there's not a lot of wind happening in that pack.
Well, the other reason, as Jonathan pointed out, it is harder if you're at the back because the first few around the turning can actually accelerate out, and if you're at the back of the line gets strung out and you have to work that much harder to stay in touch.
Guy Leach is down there now as we see a very tight shot of Greg Bennett from Sydney. Leachy, what do you think about this one?
Well, I think it's really going to come down to a case. I feel he might have words about this, but I think the next run and the next swim are going to be imperative to the end of the race. Whoever's going to get away in this next run and can do a good swim before they get back on the bike are going to have a good chance of winning this race.
Well, that's right, Leachy. Last year, that is where the race was won. It was the first run and the second swim. Oh, we nearly saw that look like Spencer Smith hit the gutter, and good bike handling skills to recover there. But as I was saying, last year, that first run and then the second swim, Brad Bevan and also Greg Welch made the surge, and the rest of the field never saw them for the rest of the day. So you've got to come well placed off the bike, have a good transition, and get into the swim and hang on for dear life, because that is the critical part. The middle part of the race is more important than perhaps the second bike.
And that was a marvellous race there. Welch surging on the run. He had Bevan go with him. He actually was able to drop off Hamish Carter from New Zealand, who incidentally, if you joined us late, Hamish is suffering from just that fatigue syndrome that we were discussing a short time ago, and did not compete well in Manly and is missing this race, and probably, we're not sure about this, but probably the rest of the series. Again, just physical breakdown after much training and, of course, competition overseas. They have the ITU series and the TTT series, which both run in the Australian off-season, and most of these athletes compete there or in France, and some do the Asian circuit. A couple, however, Mark, as we've pointed out before, have stayed back in Australia just to focus on this series. Now, we have two breakaway leaders at the moment.
That's right. One of those people that has stayed in Australia and concentrated on their training, Victorian, local boy, Chris Lee out in front, Greg Bennett on his wheel. These two are working together to attack the pack. Now, Greg Bennett's had some injuries leading into this season, so he's not running as well. Chris Lee is running well and rides well, and you can see now the pack's getting a bit concerned, and they've decided to chase these two down.
Interesting scenario there. We'll hopefully talk to Jonathan Hall very shortly. We'll try and get across back to him. He'll be in the middle of it, and he'll know all about tactics on cycling. The national duathlon champion, but also a brilliant cyclist. And here are these two working pretty hard out there, trying to get some sort of leeway on the rest of the field. It's going to be very interesting. Chris Lee, the big young Aussie. This is one of the better performed young talents in Australia. Didn't show up a lot in Manly for the same reason as many of the other guys. He hadn't seen this series before, and really to start in this very short, explosive format, you just cannot possibly prepare for it, really. He's now, as you can see, preparing for the transition. Greg Bennett there getting his foot out of the bike shoes, and he'll go for the other one now. Chris right behind him already has his feet out. The other athletes are doing the same. And we'll go to Heidi very shortly as we see the two youngsters come in, but not really enough to make a big impact on the race. But Heidi, it should make their transition a bit smoother because they'll avoid the crowd.
That's right. It's just an awesome sight. All these athletes thundering down towards the transition area. Greg Bennett's right here. He's trying to get his helmet off. He's actually having quite a smooth transition. But Craig Walton, interesting to see him. He has taken some skin off the top of his thighs, but he does look quite good.
There they are heading out. That's Brad Bevan there, racing out of the transition. This is the first of the run legs. Ben Sanson, Cameron Brown from New Zealand, and Timmy Bentley there you saw just throw down the helmet and head out. He's a strong runner. He'll be looking to make use of that and position himself in this leg.
Well, look, there's Greg Welch. At the moment, second place, Greg Bennett out in front. The Demolition Man, Chippy Slater in third. Miles Stewart is there. There's Craig Walton, gutsing it out today. Jason Meadows, Eamon Nunn, Darren Carnell, the whole... Oh, and Spencer Smith charging through the field.
Well, I think Spencer might have his eyes on this little bloke on the right-hand side of your screen, Greg Welch, because he would be aware, as is Brad Bevan, of how Welch uses this first run to try and shake off most of the field. Let's have a look at the map now, and we'll see that the run leg is very, very tight. They come out of transition. They're going in anti-clockwise fashion. They come around, and there's a little bit of a tail there as they duck out onto the road, which they're doing right now. And they come up the street a little bit, then they turn around, come straight back, and then go back onto the grass. So there's a couple of dinks, a couple of hollows, and a few slippery bits. And there's Miles Stewart also. So they're all aware of Welchie in 1996, because in 1995, he shook a lot of them off on this run leg.
He certainly did. This is a 3-kilometre run. They have to do a 600-metre loop 5 times. There's Spencer charging up the outside. He knows he needs to be up near the front for the next swim leg. And this is where the pace will get intense.
Well, you see there Cameron Brown tailing off at the end of the field, the youngster from Auckland, 23 years old. His goals are to do well in the ITU Series, the Grand Prix, and the World Championships, of course, where he will probably represent his country. Second in the World Junior Championships in 1992 in Canada, behind Spencer Smith. But right now, Greg Welch is taking out a bit of a lead on Bevan. Chippy Slater in third place. Miles Stewart coming up in 4th place, and Big Spencer should be trying to get close to that bunch now, but they seem to have gotten away. There's Spencer in the far corner, coming out around there. He is, the green singlet there, and he'll be looking to pick up those 4. No wonder he was sprinting before, Mark. He knew that they were going to try and get away.
Well, that's right. He will have watched the tapes from last year, and he knows that this is the critical part of the race, and they are flying.
All right, Greg Welch, Brad Bevan, Chippy Slater, and right behind them, Miles Stewart. We'll go to Heidi Ahrens now with a special guest.
I'm with Di Holden, one of our great sprinters, still holding the Australian record for 60 metres. She also happens to work with St George Bank and is an avid follower of triathlon. What can you give us your impression of the leaders?
Yeah, it's a very exciting race. We couldn't be asking for anything more. Greg Welch moving up to the lead out of the run leg. He's looking extremely strong, very smooth. Miles Stewart behind him. So it's a very exciting race.
What do you think these athletes need in technique in order to be able to hold out over the whole enduro format?
They need to look at their styles really closely and not waste any excess energy. They have to do it all again. And when we get around to looking at them at the final leg, we'll be able to see how much they've spent in the earlier legs.
Is there anyone's technique in particular that you can point out to us?
I'd say Greg Welch is a very fluent athlete. He's got a very economical style, and he's got one of the fastest times over 10K.
All right, thanks very much, Di Holden.
Heidi Ahrens with Di Holden. Spencer Smith is still chasing, and Mark Lees, I think, very sensibly has tacked right onto Spencer's tail, and they're in pursuit of these 4 athletes right now. Greg Welch, as Di pointed out, very fluent runner. In fact, he's been coaxed and cajoled by a lot of coaches. Oh, Welch, he's also a great personality, there's no doubt about it. He's been coaxed into, or they've tried to coax him into actual marathon running, Greg Welch. He has such talent there. Brad Bevan behind him with Stewart and Chippy Slater, and Spencer now trying to take the rest of the field up to them, and a couple of strong runners going with him. Johns, Bentley, and also right in there behind him, Mark Lees.
Well, and Ben Bright was also there, but
Lockbolmer House, Darren Carnell, we saw just going through.
But how's the showmanship of Greg Welch? But I have to say, although it looks like he might have done it for fun, Welch is an amazing character. These guys aren't going slow, but he still found time to do that. But I actually think it helped him get round that corner. He seemed to have a little bit of a lead coming out, and he is really moving.
Well, it's a tight corner, and it's a sudden downslope, so perhaps it was, in fact, a way of avoiding any sort of collisions. There he is, Welch, Stewart and Bevan behind him. Chippy Slater hanging on, and in the distance, Spencer Smith leading the pack up towards them. It's going to be a tremendous finish. We're only halfway there, in fact, not even that far. We'll come back with more action from St Kilda after this. And a thriller in round 2 of the St George Bank Triathlon GP. Greg Welch leading them in the first of 2 run legs. They're going to have to do it all again after this concludes. Brad Bevan second, Miles Stewart third. Now they're working together. They're the leading 3. There's a little gap now of something like 6 seconds to the big Englishman Spencer Smith, who was leading a charge, and they're trying to reel in these leaders. Mark Buell, how do you sum up the tactics now? Just before you do, we've got Bentley, Johns, Smith, Chippy Slater hanging on, and Mark Lees in that chasing pack, and Ben Bright is trying to link up with them, so let's see how it unfolds. What do you think?
Well, I think at the moment these 3 out in the lead are obviously in the best position going into the swim. Brad Bevan has been working on his swimming, very, very strong at the moment. Miles Stewart also, and I would say Miles is probably having a fantastic tactical race at the moment. He's just sitting in. He knows there's no point going off the front. These 3 will work together in the swim. However, I have to say, I think going into the swim and then the next bike leg, Spencer probably feels he is strong enough to bridge the gap if he does come out of the water a little bit behind, and he's probably right on that. He's a very strong cyclist, but these 3 are really motoring, and Greg Welch looks in great form. The 1994 Hawaiian Ironman champion, and he is just looking superb.
He was close up in 1995, couldn't quite repeat his performance of the previous year, and, well, we all thought that he would have focused a little more specifically on this series this year, but he still said as he went in that he'd done a little too much distance work to be quite suited to it. That gives you an idea of the distance between the chasing pack and the leaders. You can see Ben Bright has caught up with them. So we've got Smith, Lees, Bright, Andrew Johns is up there as well, and Troy Fiddler coming round the corner now. There are your 3 leaders, though. Welch, Stewart and Bevan in pursuit. We've got Smith, Bentley, Johns, Slater, Lees. Eamon Nunn is prominent with Lockbolmer House into transition. We have them and Heidi Ahrens. How far away is that pack now?
It's about 7-8 seconds now. Brad Bevan actually slipped over, coming around the final lap into the transition area. But Spencer Smith is already out of transition in hot pursuit with Johns Mark Lees following.
Oh, well, if he can stay close through the Gatorade thirst station, and they're heading now towards the water for the Rexona swim leg. Troy Fiddler now, he'll have to get a wriggle on to catch up with these. If he can form into that pack on the bike, if he can get through the swim and form a pack on the bike, he still has some hope. Here are the other stragglers coming in now. That's Greg Bennett from Sydney, who's working his way out of transition now. And Craig Walton, how much has that fall taken out of him? He's a strong swimmer, Mark. He might be able to pick up something here.
Well, I'm sure he will, just like Benjamin Sanson and Darren Carnell. I also expect to get stronger. You can see how the wading, they're not quite as, I guess, aggressive as they were in the first, because they're tired after that first run.
Guy Leach, how do you think they look?
Well, there's the smart move by Chippy Slater there, and also Ben Bright to the... As I'm looking back into the beach on the left-hand side, there's a bank there that's very, very shallow. Now, the guys on the right-hand side that went out have to swim and porpoise, with the guys on the left-hand side are running straight out. Now, they've made up about 20 metres on the front, guys. We've got Miles Stewart out in front. We've got Greg Welch on his feet, Brad Bevan, and then back to a pack that's got a lot of guys in there. But what I'm thinking here is that Welshie's really got to hang in this leg and the swim leg. Brad's going to be thinking, I need to get rid of Welshie so that I can sort of form some sort of lead on him going to the bike and the run, because Welshie, I think, is looking ominous for the win today.
Guy Leach there on the water, and as you can see, Miles Stewart has moved to the lead. We'll go to a break with some leaderboards here. Greg Welch and Stewart. Stewart has just taken the lead there. Now, Brad Bevan is up there in third place. Spencer Smith is, in fact, a little distance behind them with Tim Bentley and Andrew Johns. Let's go to the next page with Lees, Bright. Bevan is, in fact, a lot higher placed than that. Wayne Slater, Eamon Nunn is up there as well. They're very close. And Loch Volmerhouse, Troy Fiddler, they're all prominently placed. Darren Carnell will be looking to have a good swim too. So it looks like we're going to have the 3 leaders, but a big chasing pack going into the next bike leg, and we'll be back to have a look at that soon.
Good afternoon, I'm Marianne Dibbs with another Summer of Sport update. There's a 3-way tie for the lead late in the final round of the Cannon Golf Challenge. Senior, O'Malley and Tatarangi are all locked at 8 under. New South Wales is fighting back in the Mercantile Mutual Cup semi-final against Western Australia. The Blues are defending the modest total of 210. The Adelaide Rams seem unconcerned about the federal court case going so heavily against Super League. The Rams have gone ahead with their season launch in Adelaide, complete with dancing girls. The players were introduced to the fans and the entertainment culminated in a fireworks display. There'll be more fireworks tomorrow when Justice James Burchett awards damages. Todd Martin and Pete Sampras will meet in the final of the St Jude's Tennis Classic. Martin has beaten Australia's Mark Philippoussis. Full details in the news at 5 and in sports tonight.
I met her down at Hungry Jack's. Her name was Jill and the place was packed. It was the answer to all my dreams. She loved chicken and I loved beef.
You'll be wanting our Jack and Jill value meal.
Jack and Jill value meal.
For $7.95 you get a Whopper, a chicken burger, 2 regular fries and 2 regular Cokes.
Jack and Jill value meal. Got the hungries.
To have your say on Election Day, make sure you put a number in every box on the House of Representatives ballot paper. If you use a tick or cross, your vote won't count. Or if you leave boxes blank, your vote won't count. So when you're voting on the House of Representatives ballot paper, make sure that you put a number in every box. That's every box. It's your right. Don't get it wrong.
A lot of people used to tell me all the things I couldn't do. Well, I did them. To be the best, you just have to work the hardest. That's why I use the new Rexona 24-hour intensive antiperspirant deodorant. It works harder to protect me for longer.
Rexona, it won't let you down.
When voting for the Senate, you can put a 1 above the line or number all the boxes below. This woman's put a 1 above the line. Yes, a perfect vote. This woman has numbered all the boxes below. Another perfect vote. And this man's gone below the line, but he hasn't numbered all the boxes. A wasted vote. When voting for the Senate, number 1 box above the line or number all the boxes below. It's your right. Don't get it wrong.
When things start changing around you.
She's gonna live in Mum and Dad's room?
Yeah. When you're not feeling all that well.
Clyde, you okay? She'll be fine. Go back to sleep.
When you find yourself in trouble.
They could arrest you. Do that over a lousy pair of sunglasses?
A mother is always there to make things better.
Person is not a part of this family, Claudia.
For some, they're only a fading memory.
Pretty soon there's not going to be anything left of her at all.
And for Julia, the memory is about to be shattered.
So my mom had an affair with you.
Don't miss Party of 5 tonight.
Good on you, Andrew.
Welcome back to St Kilda. We're back in the water, the second of the swim legs in this Enduro format, round 2 of the St George Bank Triathlon GP. They're heading back towards the beach, and this is the first of 2 laps on this second swim leg. Miles Stewart out of the water ahead of Welch and Bevan. But look how that pack has caught up. Ben Bright, a fantastic swim.
And Spencer.
Spencer Smith, he's done it. Well, perhaps he thought he wouldn't be that close. That shot was a little deceptive because you can see now there is a bit of a gap there, but really it's not enough to worry about at this stage of the race, Mark Field.
It's certainly not like last year where that second swim, 3 athletes got away. You can just see how strong some of the swimmers are. There's Spencer Smith going around in 5th. Mark Lees, I think, was also up there. Well, Greg Welch, a little bit of a trip there. Doesn't have quite as long legs as Brad Bevan. And Ben Bright again running off to the side and Miles Stewart following him.
Guy Leach, they're spreading out a lot here. Obviously the bank is playing a big part.
Yeah, well, Ben Bright's no fool. He's from the Gold Coast. He knows a bit about surf, and he's utilised that bank again. He's run into first place, come out of the water in 5th or 6th place. He's now in first place. It just goes to show you what a little bit of knowledge in the surf can do. I mean, it's not even breaking here, but just having a bank there can make such a big difference. Spencer Smith's looking quite strong. We've got a whole pack of guys now. Any chance of pulling ahead has just been utilised by the fact that these guys have all caught back up. Ben Bright's done a fantastic job, and he's actually pulled Spencer Smith back up in the first lap of this race. It's really going to come down again to this bike leg. Going to have lots and lots of guys now, and the fastest runner on the day is going to win.
Oh, Benny Bright, great performance. He joined the series late last year, did very well on the last 2 rounds. After getting a wild card, he was 8th in Sydney. He trains with Loch Volmerhouse at Jindabyne up in the Snowy Mountains. Bit of altitude there helping them out, and attitude as well, because Loch and Ben, as well as being great mates, are fierce rivals. If you ever ask them what their intentions are in this race, they say they want to beat each other.
Well, it certainly helps them out in their training. They really push each other. But Ben Bright is having a superb swim. He's already put in a little bit of a gap in these. And an interesting point, Ben Bright is actually Brad Bevan's second cousin. But you can see there's a strong rivalry here, and Ben Bright is off the front, and he will be looking to come out of the water first.
Well, it runs in the family, obviously. There they are, and you can see there the curve in the shape of this swim field. They're all gaining for, particularly when they're a little tired now, Guy, they're all looking to get best position going into those buoys.
Yeah, well, I think Welch has come off second best out of that sort of little encounter in and out of the water. He's back in about 5th position now, although Ben Bright's doing a good job, but you can't go past Brad, can you? He's always in 1st, 2nd, 3rd place in the run and the swim legs. He's always positioned himself, so he's always there, you know, so he's looking good. Miles Stewart's looking very, very sharp, and prior to the race said he thinks today could be the day he's going to have a win. And the rest of Phil, Spencer Smith's still up there. Chippy, I can see back there. I can see Eamon Nunn. Loch Volmerhouse is even up there, and then there's a gap back to Simon Knowles. There's a split of about 2 body lengths. But up here in front, Ben Bright's doing a fantastic job, and Brad's just sitting there on his feet.
On the Rexona swim leg, Guy, I wonder, some of the athletes like Eamon Nunn and Locke who've managed to keep in touch with these leaders, but how much petrol have they used to do so?
Yeah, they'd be hurting a bit. You mean, to be up in front, you're going to be a lot more relaxed than fighting it down the back. And these guys, I'm looking back through the field now, and they are. Chippy's having a clash there with Eamon Nunn. They're hitting hands, and then Spencer's in there, and his band and his hair's come out, so his hair's everywhere. We all know he's got quite long hair, so he's having trouble seeing where he's going. It's a bit of a fight out here, but yeah, the guys at the back do it tough. They're going to be feeling good about themselves, though. They're still in the lead pack, and there's still a chance here to do well today.
Well, Spencer lost his cap on the run. Now he's lost the band and his hair. He might even lose his hair next. They're coming out into the water, into the sand now. And here's where the tired legs might cause some problems, Guy.
Yeah, that's right. You really do hurt here. I mean, any chance of cramping is right now, although the tide has dropped right down from the start of the race. And as you can see, the guys don't have to lift their legs up that high to run out. Spencer's having a few problems. He's a big lad. He doesn't get his legs up that high when he runs, but the rest of the guys are doing it quite easy. We're coming through. Fiddler's coming out now, and Johns, and also Tim Bentley. And I'm looking back here to Jason Meadows, and there's just a few more in the water.
Well, there's Spencer Smith looking like Sigmund the Sea Monster coming out of the water with his hair everywhere. But they will be very, very close going. There's Andrew Johns. He's well placed. Back onto the bike again. I think this time, as they run through the Gatorade Thirst Station, they run back through the transition, through the Reebok changeover, jump on their bikes, and there we are. Welchie again making the surge. He knows how important it is to be out in front, stay out of trouble, have a good transition, and get out there on the bike.
Heidi Ahrens, it does look at this stage, barring any mishaps, that these guys will form one big pack going into the next leg.
That's right, Bill. It's not absolutely vital they get out on their own, but it is important to be in the first pack. And Miles, Brad Bevan and Greg Welch are all out together.
Well, that was a superb transition from those three leaders. In and out very quickly. You can see Spencer's lost about 5 places. There's Troy Fiddler heading out now, not performing quite as well as he would have expected this year. He had a superb season last year, winning the Australian Championship. And as we look towards our leaders, that's Greg Welch slipping the shoes on. And Miles Stewart, he looks very ominous today.
Miles does not look as though he's spent a penny. He is settled down. He's been with the guys the whole way. But he's taken his turn in front. There's no question about that on the previous bike leg. But now we go out on this critical leg. There's the 3 leaders. There's not much between them and the chasing pack. Hard to imagine that these 3 can do any damage to that big group forming up behind them. Welch, Stewart and Bevan, there they are. And crossing now, or turning now, is the chasing pack, which contains Eamon Nutt, who's having a wonderful race. Well, as far as the lap timer is telling me, Craig Walton is in that second pack as well. He is a very strong swimmer, so that may well be true. We'll try and get that confirmed visually in a minute. Darren Carnell, also a strong swimmer. Doesn't surprise me to see him up there with Chippy Slater, Ben Bright, Locke Bolmerhouse. We've got Smith up there as well, Spencer Smith, who didn't do so well going on the last of that swim lap and into transition mark.
No, he was a little bit slower, but that comes down to experience. These 3 guys out in front have raced the series before, so they've had the extra benefit of the numerous transitions that are involved in GP racing. As I mentioned before, it's so important. There's 5 transitions in one race, and it is a technique that has to be practiced and has to be worked on.
Well, let's have a quick run through the field now, and they have formed one big pack yet again. They're going to cross the first checkpoint shortly, so we might just go to the computer in a moment and get a rundown for you. But Stewart obviously in front there with Welch right up beside him. There are a couple coming from behind there, and there is quite a sizable gap to the next rider. And that is making for an interesting scenario. There's Miles Stewart. Quick look at his performance. 1991 world champion, and he's only 24 years of age. Feels like he's been around for a long time, but Miles has got a long way to go yet.
Well, he's been in the sport a very long time. In fact, he was the highest placed Australian finisher in the first official World Championships in Avignon in France in 1989. He finished 4th there. So he has been around a long time, and you do tend to forget how young he is. But this year, he's shed off probably around 5 kilos, and he is back to his best form. And tactically, he's a very smart racer. There's Brad Bevan signalling them. He wants these guys to work together to break away, because at the moment there's a pack there. You can see there's about 7 riders, and the rest of the field are strung out. That's because that second swim really broke them up. So if these guys can work together, this is where the lead will come from. Locke Bolmerhouse in great shape. That's Craig Walton. That is an incredible performance from him.
It was Craig Walton. Unbelievable. So let's have a quick look at this pack. Walton there with Stewart, Welch, Bevan, Eamon Nunn, Darren Carnell. A marvellous performance from him to catch up. He wasn't really sighted until that second swim. Slater, Bright, Bolmerhouse. I'm going through the placings here at the last checkpoint. Smith still up there in 10th spot. Sanson, Fiddler, Bentley, Johns, Metters. George Atkinson is there. Chris Hill, Mark Lees, Greg Bennett. Allen's up there, Richard Allen, Simon Knowles. Then we've got Cameron Brown, Jason Harper and Chris Lee, who of course spent a few bit of petrol there on the first bike leg, Chris Lee, when he tried to break away with Greg Bennett. But there they are now, past.
Well, you can see how important transition is. Spencer Smith is now leading the 3rd group on the bike simply because he was a little bit slow in transition. You can see the 2 training partners, Ben Bright and Locke Bolmerhouse, in no man's land at the moment, in between the 2 packs, working very hard, and I think they will catch up to this front bunch, and that is the all-important 7 up front.
Bentley and Smith and Johns and Fiddler and Sanson lead that third pack. Here's the leader, though. Greg Welch with Brad Bevan, Eamon Dunn, Walton and Carnell are in there. And the stage is set for a blistering finish. We have the rest of the bike leg and the run, and we'll find out shortly. We'll go to a break.
Good afternoon, I'm Tracy Spicer with another news update.
Leading pack, Greg Welch, Brad Bevan, Eamon Dunn, Craig Walton, the miracle man from Tasmania, who crashed heavily in the first bike leg, and that's Greg Welch bearing down over the handlebars. Darren Carnell, Miles Stewart, Chippy Slater and Locke Volmerhouse, Ben Bright. Ben Bright 6 seconds behind Volmerhouse, but not a lot off the lead. There's only about 12 seconds separates them all. Then we've got a bunch containing Tim Bentley, Spencer Smith, Andrew Johns, Troy Fiddler, Ben Sanson and Jason Metters. They're hoping to catch up. Then another bunch with Hill, Atkinson, Bennett, Lees, and then a fair gap to Richard Allen, Harper, Brown, Chris Lee and Simon Knowles. Andrew Noble, it seems, is no longer in the race. Chris McCormack was injured very early and is also not competing. Let's have a chat with Guy Leach and see what he thinks of how this race is shaping up.
Well, actually, Andrew Noble had a flat in the first bike leg and had to really go through the whole bike leg with a flat. So he's out of the picture, but he's still racing. I think that, it's tough, you know. Last year the swim leg made the difference. This year it didn't. We made the call that might have been the case. The guys hung in there. Ben Bright brought the field back up again, and we're in a situation now where all the main guys are up in the front bunch. It's going to be the guy that rests the most in this bike leg, can be safe around the course, be tactically smart and get off into that run leg, into the transition area, have a good change, get off into the run leg in the top four and have his legs fresh. Now, who that is, I don't know. I'm going to stick with Welsh. I'll be very interested to see what you guys think.
Well, mate, I have no idea. I've thought about a tip for this, but I just couldn't come up with anything. I had a feeling about Miles, but you can't discount Brad. And as you say, Welchie, very composed during the week. And when he's like that, I just got this, it seems to me like he thinks he's going to win the race, although not that he ever thinks he's going to lose a race, you know what I mean. Very confident. But let's hear from a young man who right now is in the second pack, if you can call it that. He's on his own with Locke Volmerhouse, the two of them, and they're also good buddies. And it's Ben Bright. Let's hear from him.
One at Manly was pretty good. I ended up getting stronger as the day went, and the last race I came in third, which I was pretty happy with. My preparations for this race haven't been much different to Manly, just been doing some good work and just getting the training done, and I think with the racing I'll improve through as the series goes. I'm definitely better prepared than last year, there's no doubting that. Greatest achievement would be winning World Championships as a junior in 1994 in New Zealand. That was a great moment. I was favourite going in and I won, so it was a real big relief that I did win, but it was still a good moment. I'd have to say my main rival would be Locke Volmerhouse because I live with him and we train together and all that sort of thing, so you know, it's good to beat Locke. My ambitions for this series would have to be to smash Locke and not get beaten by Locke.
Well, you can see the rivalry they have, but they are great mates. But Ben Bright is better prepared this year, as he mentioned, and it showed in Manly. His performances are exceptional, as are Locke's. He is the current Australian sprint distance champion. But at the moment, at the front, these leaders have been working very well together. And here's the shot from Jonathan Hall. Jonathan, what's happening out there at the moment?
Yeah, I'm just tagging onto the back of the front group. Ben Bright has just made contact onto that group. He was the big mover in the run, and his mistake last time was to be too far back in the transition. They're moving along. Spencer Smith, his group isn't making any time at all.
Well, that's interesting because Spencer has to be within contact. Jonathan, do you rate him any sort of chance given that position now?
No, not at all. He does look strong on the bike after the swim, and the group he's with aren't really cooperating.
I wonder how much Spencer, you know, is finding this split format of the Enduro tough to compete with.
Well, he has no blood in his legs. He's going to come out and push big gears. That's something he's finding real difficult today.
Well, that is fascinating. Jonathan Hall is one of Australia's best cyclists, and it has taken him a long time to catch up to this package. Just caught on. Jonathan Hall, a former Commonwealth Games cyclist and a fantastic rider and the current Australian duathlon champion. And so that gives you some idea of how fast this front pack is cycling.
one of the criticisms, or if you can call it that, of triathlon over the years from cyclists has been that the standard of cycling has not been as good as it could be. But I really believe, and I'm sure Jonathan would agree, that they're improving their technique all the time. Of course, mixing it with 2 other disciplines makes it hard to really refine your skills.
Exactly. It used to be that if you were a strong swimmer or a strong cyclist or a strong runner, you could actually win a race. That's not the case anymore. The last 5 years, the talent level has improved to the point where if you are not strong in every single discipline, you're not going to win a race. And Eamon Nunn there, number 11 out in front. Darren Carnell, he just seems to get better as the races get longer. I think Darren will be very strong also in Canberra. Chippy Slater there, number 4, he's also very strong on the bike. These guys are working well together. You can see they've formed a pack, but they are taking turns so that nobody is using too much energy. But Miles Stewart, tactically, having a very good race, sitting in as much as possible, and Brad Bevan there also well placed.
You've got to give Chippy some raps, Mark, the way he's managed to link up with this group, given that he didn't have a great first run. And it looked like they might have shaken him off, but he's managed to hold on, had a very good swim. And Ben Bright, too, as Jonathan pointed out, has managed to recoup that gain that he made in the swim leg. He's tacked onto the leaders again. And we'll just have give you an idea now. We've got Slater, Walton, and they're 2 excellent performances. Then you've got the 3 guys who've basically been up the front all the way, Welch, Stewart and Bevan. Then you have Eamon Nunn, Ben Bright and Darren Carnell, who had to work hard. Loch Volmerhouse tacking onto that group as well. They have formed a big gap. I think there's no way in the world the winner's going to come from anywhere beyond that top 9. But you do have in that second pack Tim Bentley, Smith, Sanson, Knowles, Lee, Fiddler, Johns, Bennett, Atkinson, Hill, Metters, Mark Lees, Harper and Cameron Brown. This is the second pack you're looking at right now. No, it's not. It's still, that's the, beg your pardon, that is them. I thought it might have been the yellow jersey. It's actually the green one of Spencer Smith. So he's coming 4th in that second pack, and I think from that, what Jonathan Hall pointed out, Mark, is quite true, that they're not really working together as the first one is. Well,
Spencer's not making the charge that I expected him to. I guess part of that is because they've already effectively done a triathlon once through already. So to hop back on the bike, maybe not quite as strong. This is our leaders at the moment. Eamon Nunn looking very good. Chipmunk Slater riding well. Loch Volmerhouse, he's well placed as well. And I expect Loch to have a solid run to finish well. Craig Walton, the big question is how much will that fall take out of him on the last run? Traditionally, that has been perhaps his downfall, but he has been working on it. Miles Stewart, very well placed. Greg Welch, I have to say, though, had so much spring in his legs. He looked so smooth. But it's certainly going to come down to absolute guts and determination and speed for the last run.
Here we go. There's our leading pack, and there's no question the winner will come from that. We'll go to a break, and let's have a look, though, as we do. Craig Walton leading with Wayne Slater there, Brad Bevan, Miles Stewart, Greg Welch, and they are contesting now this thrilling second round of the St George Bank Triathlon Grand Prix. We'll be back after this with the conclusion to a great race.
In Brad Bevan and win $100,000. Brad the Crop Bevan has taken all before him and reigned supreme. So here's your chance to become an overnight sporting sensation.
Bank Triathlon GP second round at St Kilda, and one of those riders will win this race. There are 9 in front in a pack, nothing between them. Slater, Walton, Bevan, Stewart, Welch, Carnell, Volmerhouse, Bright and Nunn. The positions changing constantly as they work together, but this is the second pack now, and they look a little bit tighter now. Guy Leach, you've been down there having a look at this bunch. Is there any hope of these guys tacking on in this leg?
Well, I don't think so, not unless they get in a taxi and pull back up to the front group. The 2 laps to go, they're 33 seconds down. Last lap just through here, they were 50 seconds down. So they're losing about 18 seconds a lap at the moment, and things aren't looking good. Spencer doesn't look as sharp as he did before, and I think the winner, Spencer's not going to be on the dice today. No chance.
All right, the top 9 then is where it's going to be. Sanson, Bentley, Johns and Fiddler with Spencer Smith in that second pack. Getting back to the leaders now, and that's Wayne Slater on the right of your screen. Craig Walton, if you've just joined us, crashed in the first cycle leg, and it was a nasty one. He was in a lot of pain, and it's credible that he is even involved in this race, let alone setting up a chance of winning. However, Mark, running is not his strongest suit.
No, but he has improved it out of sight. He finished second at the Australian Sprint Championships behind Loch Volmerhouse. holding off a charge from Tim Bentley, who's one of the fastest runners in triathlon anywhere in the world. And you can see the power of Craig Walton there up in front, but looking around for someone else to take a turn. Chippy Slater, number 13 next. Darren Carnell, number 12 behind him. But at the moment, the major players are very well placed. But as Leachy said, Spencer Smith in that second pack, 30 seconds down. I don't think that we're going to see him up the front today. There's Darren Carnell taking a turn at the moment, and they're working very well together.
Good performance from Carnell, the 24-year-old, one of whose hobbies is singing, playing piano, entertaining the rest of the series. One of his goals is to make the Australian team for the Cleveland World Championships in 1996 and to finish in the top 5 on the French Iron Tour, which is an interesting situation because we do mention constantly the two major overseas tours, the ITU World Cup Series and the TPT, the Triathlon Pro Tour. But there are good events in France, and athletes like Darren Carnell and Jason Metters have been going over there in the off-season, Mark, and competing well. The French Iron Tour, perhaps, what would you say, the closest thing overseas to this series?
To this, and also perhaps the Tour de France, because that is a number of races, 5 or 6 races on consecutive days. So very, very tightly bunched, and it takes a real endurance specialist. And Ben Bright has competed in that for 2 years and done exceptionally well. Darren Carnell did compete in France this year also, and there are great races all around the world. Greg Welch, who won the 95 TPT, Triathlon Professional Tour. So there's a lot of opportunities for triathletes all around the world, but Australians really do tend to dominate.
We have winners everywhere, and we've said it before, but we won both the men's and women's divisions in the World Cup and TPT series in 1995. Jones and Welch in the TPT, and of course Bevan and Carney in the ITU World Cup series, which is the official ITU series. Jonathan Hall will have a chat with you now. What do you think about the way this leading pack's shaping up?
Well, this pack at the moment, they're just rolling through over the top of each other, keeping the pace high. Miles Stewart probably looks the best. He's riding some little gears, keeping his legs nice and fresh for the run. Bevan seems to be going well as Welch, but Locke Bolmerhouse is just sitting on the back here. He's under no obligation to do any work, and I'm sure he's going to have a blistering run.
Well, I think that's a fairly thinly veiled description of Locke's contribution to this pack, Jonathan. But then again, he did have a big chase, didn't he, to catch up with them?
Yeah, that's right. Locke did a lot of work, as did Ben, and it depends how they get into transition this time. But, no, they're under no obligation to do any work. They're away from Smith now, and they're starting to watch each other a little, just sussing each other out before they get into this last run.
Yes, well, we're getting very close to that, and that'll be the telling thing. Eamon Nunn there, as you can see, right in front of Jonathan, taking his turn to have a rest. But Brad Bevan hasn't done much either, Mark. He's conserved himself, as usual, very well.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are being very sensible. Locke Bolmerhouse has placed himself very well. There is absolutely no point in being a hero and trying to go off the front and pull the pack for the whole time, because your legs will just be burning. You get into the run, they'd feel like jelly, and that's the last that we would see if that were the tactics of that person on the run. So it's very, very sensible to do exactly what they're doing, take some turns, try and get as much rest as possible. However, on this lap, this is the last lap, it's important to be well placed coming off the bike and into the transition.
Chippy Slater there with the blonde hair. He's just dropped, he's number 13 there. He's just taken a bit of a rest back there on the shoulder of Craig Walton as Brad Bevan takes a turn in the lead. Chippy now based on the Gold Coast. He's made a few adjustments to his training this year. He came in very heavy last year. When I say heavy, he was very muscular. Didn't quite turn out to be beneficial for him. He's now lightened up again, and his goal this year was to knock 3 minutes off his triathlon distance time, which is roughly the equivalent of what they're doing today, except not quite in the same order.
That's right. Well, you may notice at the moment, Brad Bevan is out in front. The shoulders are rolling. He appears to be working very hard. Locke Bolmerhouse was off to his side. There you can just see him to the left, looking very, very smooth. And I think, Locke's surging now. I think he's placing himself for a good position off the bike. And Miles Stewart, again, looking good. But this is where the different type of triathlon racing tactics are so important in the GP format. And Locke Bolmerhouse at the moment has gone to the front, so he will be looking for a smooth transition going into the final 3-kilometre run.
Just running through this pack for you again, and you must be aware that when we give you placings, it is as they pass the last checkpoint. on the computer. So the lead is chopping and changing all the time when they're in a pack, obviously. But we've got Craig Walton up there with Chippy Slater, Brad Bevan, Darren Carnell, Eamon Nunn, Locke Volmerhouse, Greg Welch has been there, Miles Stewart as well, and Ben Bright. That is your leading pack. There's 9 of them. And then there's a gap of nearly a minute now to Troy Fidler, Tim Bentley, Benjamin Sanson from France, Andrew Johns and Greg Bennett. Now, I don't see Spencer Smith's name in that group, but then again, there's a group tacked onto them with Hill, Lees, Metters, Atkinson, Smith and Simon Knowles. And that is how the second pack is formed up. But these are the leaders. Smith, I can tell you now, is at the last checkpoint was in 19th position, which is quite a surprise, given that a lot of people tipped him to win this race. He will not do that now. One of these men will. They're getting out of the saddle and going into transition.
Here's the charge. They will be flying now, and Heidi, this will be absolute intense into the Reebok changeover.
That's right. It's absolutely incredible that all these athletes are still together. It's so vital to have a good transition here because it's most likely it will all come down to a final sprint. So looking for Brad Bevan, Greg Welch and possibly Miles to be out together, and that's exactly the way it is. Greg Welch and Chippy Slater leading out of the transition area.
You might notice there Miles Stewart having to re-rack his bike because the rules decree that it must be in the rack. So had he left it on the ground, he risked disqualification. Greg Welch again doing that little flick around the pole there with Chippy Slater on his shoulder and Brad Bevan close. Darren Carnell is there coming up in the distance. Miles is there, so he's not had a great transition. He spotted those 2 danger men, Bevan and Welch, a big lead at this stage. They go through the Gatorade thirst station, and there's plenty of thirst at this point.
Well, these guys would be thirsty. They'll be hurting. Their legs will just be pained after the bike, and this pace will be so intense. It's only 3 kilometres. It's 5 laps of a 600-metre course. There are a few corners in there where if you're not careful, you could slip. And once again, Greg Welch is dictating the pace. Miles Stewart is fighting back from that mishap in the transition where his bike fell on the ground. He's going to come back. Darren Carnell is hanging in there. There's Ben Bright, and another group is in transition.
Heidi Ahrens.
Yeah, another pack just comes straight into transition. Looks pretty good this stage, although Spencer Smith is actually looking quite poor. He's come last in the second pack, and he's struggling also in the transition area.
Shot there. That was Troy Fidler. We saw Andrew Johns before that, and here we go with the leaders again. Bevan's taken over, so it's Bevan now, perhaps surging to try and shake off Welchie, but he won't do it at the moment. Chippy is chasing, and then Miles is trying to catch on to those 3. Darren Carnell catching up there with Ben Bright. But I wonder, will it come down to these 2 men again? They had an amazing duel in Geelong in 1994. In 1995, we saw Hamish Carter and Miles Stewart challenge them somewhat, but it still came down to those 2. That was Locke Volmerhouse, Eamon Nunn. And here are the 2 leaders again, Bevan and Welch. The pace is on. Miles is after them, though. Chippy just dropping off the pace a little bit. Can Miles pick up these 2?
Well, this speed is phenomenal. I think Miles can bridge the gap. But Brad Bevan has taken the bit between his teeth and surged, and his running this year is better than it was last year. He ran 30 minutes and 2 seconds for 10 kilometres in the Sydney ITU World Cup race, which is probably the fastest recorded time after the bike out of any of these 3 guys. Greg Welch and Miles have both run under 30 minutes for a pure 10k run, but at the moment it's Brad Bevan is just surging. You can see he's throwing the challenge to these 2 guys. And in fact, Miles is hanging in there. So this is going to be a superb finish.
Back to Spencer Smith now, as Heidi mentioned. He was in fact last of the second pack. So Spencer, of course, is about to be caught by Brad Bevan and Greg Welch. Well, they may not do so, but you can see the distance there that they've put in front of that second pack. Welch and Bevan. I silly said Belch and Bevan, but anyway, Miles Stewart pursuing those 2. Chippy just can't quite keep up with them. Ben Bright may in fact run into a placing here. He's finishing very, very strongly. Bevan and Welch, well, Welch, he just won't let go. He will not let go of Brad Bevan. And so this is going to be a sensation, this final run leg. It's 5 600-metre laps, and the crowd are just lapping this up.
Well, this is incredible. You would have to go to a lot of trouble to find action more exciting than this. Let's see how they handle the corner as they come round. Very careful coming in and then surging out of the corner, accelerating. Brad Bevan looking like he was trying to put Spencer in between he and Welchie. I think Welchie will just hang on his shoulder. I think Miles is going to be perhaps lucky and have to work very hard to get back. I think that Greg Welch will be happy to sit behind Brad Bevan until the last lap, and that is where Welch made his move last year and set up the run. If it comes down to a sprint, I have to favour Greg Welch at the moment.
Well, if Miles can tack on, he's also very strong in that sprint finish, but he's going to have to use up some petrol to get to these two because of this pace that Bevan has set in this final run leg. You can kiss the rest goodbye. Ben Bright is some distance behind, and he will perhaps put some distance on the others. Just coming around there is young Chris Hill. Troy Fiddler, you can see, turning the corner now. And it's a pretty tough situation for these back markers as they see Bevan and Welch bearing down on them. Look at Welch. He's got the smaller stature. He's tucked in behind Bevan. If you can get any sort of draft out of a run, Welch is getting it.
Well, you can get a small benefit. You can see Greg Welch is 5'6". You can't even see him. Oh, there, he's off to the side. And now cutting the inside and taking the lead. This is now a psychological battle. I think Miles Stewart, the gap's opened up too big, and it will come down to these two guys. They're going to play psychological games with each other for the rest of the run. Try and swap, try and break each other, surge, and just keep pressing. There we are. Brad Bevan now surging. This is going to come right down to the wire.
This is amazing stuff. What a race these two have provided for us over the years. Bevan, of course, much more suited to the GP format. Welchie has focused more on distance events and endurance events over the last couple of years. But when it comes down to the middle distances where they can meet on almost level terms, it is a magnificent contest through the Gatorade Thirst Station, and there's just no time to even think about that now. It's all in the head and what's left of the legs.
Well, Brad looks like he's hurting to me. Welchie, I think, is more comfortable. And just look for a little telltale sign. When Welchie makes a big move, the head goes back slightly and he just powers. I think that Welchie's got him covered at the moment. And just to show how strong they are, they have just passed the current Australian champion and also Chris Hill, the world junior champion. So the pace that these guys are running at is amazing.
Jason Metters there, Greg Bennett, looking like he's putting a lot of work into his run. Georgie Atkinson, who's fighting now just to hold off being lapped by these two greats of the sport of triathlon, the winners of their respective tours in 1995 overseas. Now Heidi is with Di Holden, who I'm sure is as excited as anyone else about this great finish.
Yeah, the competition is just so intense. How do you see it, Di?
I think it's a tactics game now. Brad Bevan's trying to throw Greg Welch off, because if it comes down to a sprint, he won't be able to hold him off. So it's exceptionally exciting. Miles Stewart holding off the end, but it's between Bevan and Welch.
All right, Di, thanks for being our special guest commentator today.
Thank you.
On to the last lap now, I think, and you'll see Greg Welch has just moved away from Bevan there. The crowd went crazy because they thought there might be a big surge, but Bevan has stuck with him. Oh, this is mighty stuff. Brad Bevan, he hasn't had a great deal of running training in the last week or so. Not that it matters too much at this stage, because they're virtually all tapered for this whole series.
Well, Bevan is running on pure adrenaline and the will to want to win. This is an incredible battle. But Greg Welch, I think, has the upper hand at the moment. But Brad Bevan is not going to let him go. It's going to come down to the line. You can hear the crowd is going berserk.
Greg Welch, great reception here for the St Kilda crowd. And this is it. This is the surge. He's put some gap on Ben now. He is putting the gap in. And he is starting to pull away. It's incremental, but he's still doing it inch by inch. Bevan trying to hold on. The pain, everything else against him. You can see they're going through a crowd of athletes there. Jason Metters about to be passed. Welch goes past him, and he looks over his shoulder. Metters, could this interfere with Brad Bevan,
well,
Mark?
That was smart tactics. Welchie went past Metters, put Jason Metters in between himself, and look at Welchie go. The head's back. Look, you can see the head's back. He's going to win this race if he can hold this pace. Brad Bevan grimly holding on, but the stringer's broken.
Greg Welch, can he make it 3 out of 3 in Victoria? I think yes. He has the arms up already, and the fans are really warming to this great little champion, Greg Welch. He's done it again.
There's the jump. Greg Welch wins.
He'll be king of Moomba after this. He's done it again in Victoria. Brad Bevan, a mighty effort to finish second. What a great duel that has been. Welch beats Bevan and has thrown this series wide open. Now, the placings behind that pair will be interesting, because Welch was behind the place getters in the first round at Manly, and his wife Sian there was in the grey outfit. She's thrilled to bits to see how he's performed. And Welch now surrounded by the media, saluting this crowd, which has given him such a great reception down here. And in a moment, Heidi Ahrens will be having a chat with him. I think he might have enough breath left to do so. Eamon Nunn, excellent performance coming in today. Miles Stewart, I think, has finished third, 6 seconds behind. Craig Walton fourth. Now we'll have Greg Welch talking with Heidi.
Greg Welch, congratulations. You won in Melbourne last year and you've done it again.
Yeah, I was pretty psyched. Pretty psyched to come down here and win again. Yeah!
The speed on that race was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, well, just had to get up the front and control it because, you know, I had a lot of competition out there today, and with Spencer and Miles. Miles looked particularly good. I thought he was the guy to beat. And then Brad was strong. He tried to stick it to me the first couple of laps on the run. I knew if I just hung tough, I could get him in the end.
Did you know that you had it in the end? Did you know you were almost there?
I knew, because last year, a lap and a half out, I went, and today I went a lap out. I think it hurt him a little bit, but he was particularly strong in those first 2 laps, and I thought that he had me for 1 minute.
And this format obviously suited you?
Oh, absolutely. I love the Enduros. I think next year we're having 5 Enduro events.
All right, congratulations.
All right, thanks.
Now it's over to Guy Leach.
I've got Brad Bevan down here. You look like you've been to hell and back. You've got ice packs on your ankle. It was a tough day in the office.
Certainly was. It was tough out there. The pace was on most of the time. A little bit of tactics involved. Going into the second swim, you had to sort of toss up whether to slow down so you could go on the bike with a group or try and hammer to try and get away from Welchie. But we slowed down a little bit, but just stayed enough away from Spencer.
And tell us about your foot. Obviously played some part in today. You've got it ice right now. You know, did it hurt you near the end of the race?
Yeah, well, I had a fall in the first run as well. I tripped over and that did my other ankle, so not a good day. But you know, I haven't run for 2 weeks and it doesn't help, but still I ran pretty quick and held Miles out, which was the main aim, sort of go into the next race as leader again. But congratulations to Welch, you had a good day.
Yeah, well, mate, you've done a great job. If you've got injuries and you've had a reasonable day for you, not the best day in your career, but you still finished second. It's a magnificent effort.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. Going to the next race still as leader, so it's good.
Well done. Well, back to Bill.
Thanks, Guy, and Brad Bevan. Brave as usual, and once again, you can beat Brad Bevan sometimes, but he's never far away when he's beaten. Let's have a look at the leaders now as they finished. Greg Welch, Brad Bevan, Miles Stewart third, then Ben Bright and Locke Bulmerhouse. They were your top 5. We'll be back to wrap it up from St Kilda, round 2 of the St George Bank Triathlon GP.
Good afternoon.
Hello and welcome back to St Kilda Beach. It's time now for the Guts Award for this event, and we can't go past Craig Walton. I think no one would argue about the fact of what he went through today. Let's just have a look at him before we ask him a few questions. Give us a smile, mate, to the camera. He's lost teeth. We've got bark off his shoulder, his arm, and down a lot down his hip there. You must have been thinking, what have I done when you went down?
Yeah, mate. I come down and I thought, geez, what am I going to do? Am I going to get on, keep going? And Jono Paul was down there and he said, you know, keep going. I thought, well, you know, there's only one thing I can do, jump back on my bike and really go, yeah.
People at home, I mean, everyone's had a crash on a bike, but when you're going something like 60 kilometres an hour going into a turn and you slide out, what's the feeling?
You don't really feel a lot, Leachy. I mean, it's just straight down on your face and that's about it, really. You know, I can't remember a lot of it, but it happens so quick. You don't really know what happens, I think.
Well, mate, congratulations. You finished 8th overall. You've had 4th in the first race. Magnificent effort in your first year. Mate, I'm sure the dentist can fix your teeth up. And good luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, mate, I'm sure my 8th will pay for the dentist bill.
Anyway, we'll go now to the series points.
Thank you, Guy Leach and Craig Walton. Congratulations on a really gutsy effort. They'll be plenty hard to top that towards the end of this series. Brad Bevan leads it by 2 points from Miles Stewart, who finished third today. Greg Welch creeping up there, and we'll have more on Welch's future in just a moment. Ben Bright and Locke Bulmerhouse make up the top 5 in the series standings. There's Walton with Wayne Slater, Chipmunk Slater, I should say, had a great performance again today. Andrew Johns, Eamon Nunn, Jason Metters in equal 9th place. Then Spencer Smith, who I'm sure would have been disappointed with today's performance. We'll find out more about that as the week unfolds. Greg Bennett going very well. Bentley, Hill, Mark Lees was right up there today, just dropped off a little bit. So did Darren Carnell. George Atkinson is working his way into what is obviously a very strange format for him. He's much more suited at longer distances. Ben Sanson was more prominent today, so he'll benefit as the races go on. Knowles, Harper, Richard Allen, Chris Lee, and that's it for the field in this amazing series. But getting back to the point I was going to make about Greg Welch, Mark Fuel, he will be better suited by Canberra in round 3, so he's nicely placed in this series.
He is. He's shown today that he can match it with the best and in fact beat them, and that 10-kilometre run in Canberra will suit him. But it just goes to show you can never predict exactly a way that the race will unfold. And great performances also from Loch Bulmerhouse, Ben Bright. It was just fantastic all round, and you could not ask for a better finish.
But the man they have to beat is still Brad Bevan, and here is a chance where you could do it.
Network 10 and St George Bank presents the sporting challenge of a lifetime. Beat triathlon champion Brad Bevan and win $100,000. Brad the Crop Bevan has taken all before him and reigned supreme. So here's your chance to become an overnight sporting sensation by beating Brad in a special one-off triathlon challenge race and pocketing $100,000. Listen to Triple M radio stations in your city for full competition details and catch all the St George Bank Triathlon Grand Prix action here on 10.
Well, let's talk about the next event now. We mentioned Canberra. It's an even longer race. It's the triathlon distance, and we'll see when it comes up right now. The women's event, of course, round 2 from St Kilda. This event at this venue is on the 2nd of March. 12 to 1 p.m. is when you can see that. And men's event, round 3 in Canberra on the 3rd of March. That'll be from 3 to 5 p.m. And Mark Fuel, give us a tip for Canberra. Welchie's the obvious favourite, I think, now.
Well, I'm still going to go with my initial thought and say Spencer for Canberra, simply because with that bike leg, 20k drafting, 20k no drafting, I think when it comes to that no drafting zone, Spencer and Craig Walton are going to power off the front.
Well, Walton obviously is going to be better positioned, barring what happened to him today, and that was a fall. What about Miles Stewart? He was just behind Welch and Bevan again today, as he was last year, but of course he's a lot fitter than he was last year. Do you give him some sort of a chance of going that extra step?
I certainly do. I think he's in as good a form as he's ever been. He's tactically very, very smart, and he's running very well, so I think he could win. I'm just tipping Spencer simply because I think Canberra is going to be a power-based race and the cycle leg is going to be very important, and Spencer has always been the strongest cyclist in the field.
Well, thanks for joining us again today. Thanks to you for watching, and please join us again in 1 week's time for what should be a great event from Canberra. Bye.
Transition.
28, Chris McCormack. It's number 20, and that's Craig Walton. And that is just a disaster for...
Craig Walton. He's come from a fall to leading the bunch. That is absolutely incredible.
But right now, Greg Welch is taking out a bit of a lead on Bevan. And they have formed one big pack yet again. Getting out of the saddle and going into transition. Greg Welch again doing that little flick around the pole there.
These guys would be thirsty, they'll be hurting, their legs will just be pained after the bike, and this pace will be so intense.
Greg Welch